As somebody with over 30 different diagnoses, the idea of doing exercise is truly terrifying. I get that a lot of the symptoms are like made a bit better by muscle mass and general exercise, and that's well studied, but like the idea of, oh, exercise is going to help me in the long term, and the reality of every single time I exercise, I feel like I'm actively dying, does not make me want to exercise, because in the short term it sucks, so why would I do that? And that's very logical to me, and yet every time I tell my doctors about that, they act like that's supremely illogical, and I don't understand, because that makes perfect sense. But anyway, now that I am directing a show in which I am also playing the lead character, and I want the show to be proper physical theater, and I am too much of a perfectionist for myself, and I believe that I can do things that I currently cannot do, I've been faced with the reality that I need to get buff somehow, which is horrible, but it means that I had to figure out ways to exercise excessively, and I am genuinely enjoying working out at this point, and I'm doing it voluntarily almost every day, and having a good time and seeing the payoff of it. And no, I don't know who I am or what I've done with regular Sydney either. Send help. Also, I really hate making this video because I have spent my whole life over and over going, no, yoga and exercise will not cure my disabilities. I refuse, absolutely not. But it's a nuanced conversation, and they kind of are working, and it's making me angry because no. But what I have learned is that it's not the physical exercise that helps, it's the strengthened muscles that help. Because if you have flare-ups, your body does a better job holding itself together, and also exercise makes it learn how to better deal with physical stress, so it can better handle physical stress from flare-ups. For example, ab workouts strengthen the muscles around your stomach, so that reflux is less. But still, despite me knowing why this works, it still really, really annoys me. Now, I think that there's a very clear difference between sports classes that are wildly inaccessible, hardcore workouts, physical therapy, and getting buffed by accident, because hardcore workouts suck, sports classes suck more. Sports in general are inaccessible. We talked about that in my Paralympics video. And also physical therapy made me really self-conscious because people were observing me exercise, and I didn't like that. And also there was a lot of like touching, and that made me feel tense, so there was no purpose because I wasn't able to relax enough to have them work, so there was no purpose. And I realized recently that all the times that I have felt physically the best of my life have all been the times that I have gotten buff by accident. And you're probably thinking, what? But like last spring when I was training a service dog puppy, but he was so baby that he would regularly fall asleep places, and I often had to pick him up and carry him around because I needed to get to class on time. And the first week I had him, I felt like death because my arms were super sore and my wrists were all dislocated, but I had no choice. And I had to keep going because puppy. But I was so excited about having a puppy that I quickly forgot about how terrible I felt because, oh my god, little puppy. And I realized that I, over time, had a lot of muscle built up. Or also like when I was abroad and we were always on explores around town, we were walking really, really long distances, but it didn't feel like exercise because it was just an adventure to see new things. And both of those times, my reactions to the foods that caused my IBS to wildly flare up generally became much, much less. Like in Italy, I could just have lactose, no problem, which is fascinating. So when I told myself, all right, Sydney, you have to get buff for your show, and I was trying to figure out how the heck am I going to go about doing that, I realized the answer is to become buff by accident, but on purpose. And what does that mean? I don't know. I don't, that was the sentiment. So I went through my brain and I tried to figure out all of the times that I have accidentally exercised and what all of those times had in common and how I can purposefully replicate that, because we are nothing if not scientific around here. And I discovered 5 things that are the key to making myself exercise. 1, lack of choice. If I have a class twice a week on the other side of campus, I have to walk to the other side of campus twice a week. That also goes for having no choice about carrying around the puppy, because I had to get places and he was doing a snooze. Boom, forced exercise, good work. 2, the activity I do is self-led or self-dictated. I'm not taking classes with others, I'm by myself. I get to dictate how it goes. That means I can decide what speed I want to go, how long I want to go, and also nobody is telling me what to do or staring at me while I exercise, and I can just do whatever I need to make myself the most comfortable with the sensory not so great that sometimes is sport. 3, teeny frequent workouts, because big workouts typically mean that you are more likely to hurt yourself. Because as you get more tired, you're more likely to have not the best form, and for bodies that work in various wonky ways, that risk level is much higher. So bad vibes. Walking across campus twice a day, every day for a month is going to make you very buff without much chance for injury because you're not doing aggressive workouts all the time. So is a handful of sit-ups before bed every night, which I've been doing, but we're gonna get there in a second. 4, the activity is a stimmy activity. For example, I can swim for hours because water is fun to play in, and I really, really like playing in water, and I don't think about the fact that it's sport. This also goes for extensive singing as ab workouts. I don't realize it's a workout because singing is a sensory coping mechanism for me. And 5, being distracted from the fact that the thing is exercise, which I guess is basically 4. So whatever, my point is that if you're really focused on a thing, you're not noticing that you're doing the working out thing that makes your body feel like it's dying. So that includes playing fetch with a dog and running after a ball, or going on a hike, but it's actually just a quest for cool leaf photos and you forget that you just walked 4 miles, or archery where you're so focused on figuring out how to aim, you forget that you're pulling back like 30 pounds of weight, or having dance parties with your friends, or just in general dance where you're focused on the moves trying to learn them and you forget how sore and tired you are. Listening to music and going on a run has never worked for me. That has never been enough distraction. And also, running is quite often a horrible experience because I prefer doing long-term endurance things where I have a smaller chance of destroying my body until I can build up that muscle mass to do more extensive things. Now, with those 5 things in mind, I set out on my quest for accessible exercise. And what I ended up doing is several teeny tiny things a day. I've been doing 30 sit-ups right before bed every night for at least 3-4 months straight at this point. It has honestly made the most difference of any workout I have ever done in my entire life. I also usually spend about an hour in a practice room doing intensive vocal training once a day or 2 hours every other day, depending on how I'm feeling. I try to do some physical theater / dance movement work stuff when I'm getting dressed in the morning and when I'm getting ready for bed at night. I make sure to get out and walk to things as much as I possibly can, especially if they're all the way across campus. And after a few months of doing all of this, I started to notice that I physically felt so much better. My IBS flare-ups are massively decreasing. My migraines are decreasing. I can now eat lactose without joint pain. I can start to eat fried foods without joint pain, which is great because I miss chicken fingers so much. I'm better at reading my physical signs, so I'm actually getting enough calories and I'm less dizzy. I am gaining physical strength that's enabling me to try new things. For example, I learned how to box last week. My friend brought me to the gym to do a punch and it was really fun. But also I was very sore afterwards, so I need to get better at that. I need to learn the thing. But also, yeah, now that I'm working on my show, I am gaining strength from constant movement work and I'm getting better and better at it, and it's all great. And like, I have spent years and years of my life being told that working out is going to physically help me. But then every time that I tried it, it was excruciatingly painful. And for a few days afterwards, I was in tons and tons of pain and I didn't see any long-term benefits from that. So I just kind of gave up exercise altogether. Now, I now know that I was trying to exercise the way that I've seen other able-bodied people exercise, and when that didn't work, I was like, okay, fine, I'll just do some research on disabled exercise. And pretty much everything I found was physical therapy stretches, and I have medical trauma, so I didn't like that. So then I went back to trying sports like everybody else and hoping that with enough brute force and sheer will, I could make my body able to tolerate it. And what I learned is no. Because I have a connective tissue disorder and a dysautonomic disorder, I cannot just sheer will myself into exercise. That is really dangerous. I instead need to slowly build up tolerances that feel like they're not doing anything for a while, but also only take like maybe 20 minutes a day and they're fun, so it's worth the time. And then as I gain more strength and ability, adding on to that with slightly more complicated things that I want to learn and find fun. And I'm now kind of at a point, right, where I understand, I'm seeing the direct response of a hard time with the outcomes that I want. And so now I'm just having fun being like, I want to try to learn a new skill and I want to struggle and I want to get to that endpoint because I can see that happening with other skills that I'm doing. So that's also improved over time. And I'm kind of just like continuing this until I'm at the physical level that I want to be, and hopefully by then we'll find a lot of joy in doing the things that were once excruciatingly hard and are now just like fun, regular things that I like to do, which is kind of where I'm starting to be at. And I wish I had more advice than that or more wisdom to share, but honestly, that's basically the core of it. I think that I've got to a point in my life where I'd been told by so many people from so many angles that exercise was going to fix my disabilities that it immediately turned me off to any kind of exercise, and I never wanted to try it because I was like, that's not how disability works. And does increased muscle mass from exercise help lessen symptoms? Yes, it does. But exercise will never cure my disabilities because that's not how that works. I have chronic illnesses. They don't get cured. And when this narrative was shoved down my throat, that was before I was able to like conceptualize the concept of nuance in general. So it kind of just stuck as a no, this won't work, moving on. And I was never able to get myself the courage to try exercising in a different way. So if that's a mental block for you all, I hope that this was helpful in getting you to move past it as well. If you have any tips, feel free to put them in the comments, because this whole sport thing is still very new for me. If I become a jock, imagine if Sydney became a jock. Anyway, basically, just try to make it fun, do tiny inconsequential things really frequently, go easy on yourself, forgive yourself for having an atypical body that works in atypical ways, because there is nothing wrong with that. And I think sometimes we really need to hear that, especially when it comes to exercise, which is so focused on like the ideal body, which we'll never have, or we do have. It's just ideal in a different way. But anyway, this video was shorter than expected, but it's all I have, and y'all asked for it, so here you go. Thanks for listening. Thanks for learning. Remember, it's never too late to start over. I look forward to seeing you, my dear, in the next one.